As you may have assumed from what's sitting behind me, I'm a massive fan of Radiohead, and I've been for almost all my life. Some of my earliest memories actually are sitting in the basement with my dad while he'd work out and just listening to him blast Radiohead. And I've always held Radiohead very dearly to my heart, and they've inspired me creatively, and just always been a band I can go back to and have a good time with. However, for years, their newest record, A Moon-Shaped Pool, just never sat right with me. I don't know why. I'd listen to it and I'd find it slow and hard to get into. And even when I would enjoy what I heard, I wouldn't nearly like it as much as the other albums in Radiohead's discography. But recently, I don't know, something must have changed in my little noodle up here. I've really loved this album, and I gotta say, if you haven't checked it out yet, A Moon-Shaped Pool is some of Radiohead's finest work. It really is a special album, and it's not like, it's not even like Kid A. It has some similar notes. You can definitely feel that it's a progression of that, sound they were kind of going for, but it truly does feel like a completely different, realm that Radiohead stepped into. Much like the change from OK Computer to Kid A, it kind of feels like Radiohead took another left turn, but also as an album that, it breaks my heart to say, I think maybe Radiohead's final album, it truly does feel like a maturation of their sound and a proper send off to one of the greatest bands of all time, but I just want to talk about it really quick. Starting off with Burn the Witch, this kind of feels like the most familiar track on the album, something that could probably have very easily been on, Hail to the Thief, maybe. But you hear those striking, staccato violin chords, and it immediately just captivates you. And I think it's a very good entrance to the album. I kind of have a rule with albums where I call it the first three. If an album has three banger songs right off the bat, I think it's gonna be a great album, and all these albums that I think are iconic in my head kind of have this rule. You see the Strokes behind me. Room on Fire follows this principle. The Black Parade, My Chemical Romance, Toxicity, System of a Down. A lot of bands, kind of come off strong with those first three songs, and I think that A Moon-Shaped Pool is no different. Maybe at first I couldn't get past kind of the slowness of some of these songs, but I don't know, we go from Burn the Witch right into Daydreaming, which is, yes, it's very long, it's very mellow, but it kind of has a certain intensity to it, and just as you feel like while you're going through the song, you're just kind of going down this rabbit hole, and I think watching the music video for Daydreaming, I'll try to link it, but it really adds to that just feeling of going down a rabbit hole that I'm talking about. And then just that kind of piano line that permeates out the entire song. And again, Tom York's voice, that's just always, always perfect. I think it really is a special song. But we go right into Dex Dark, which may be one of my favorite songs on the album. It's just, the lyrics are so fucking interesting, man, talking about an alien spacecraft, and just it's a truly special song, and capping out that, 3-song rule that I'm talking about. It really wraps it up really well. But I want to move on from Dex Dark pretty fast, just because Desert Island Disc. Now, this was a song that I always, when I got to it, trying to listen throughout 30 years, I would get to Desert Island Disc and I just turned the album off, because I'd be like, you know what, it's just too slow. I'm not into this. I think this was the song that really made the album click with me. I don't know what the hell it was, but you start out with this really kind of like dusty desert kind of, sounding guitar. And it's a really cool guitar line, like a fingerpick style, guitar line. But when the song drops, and it's not like a massive drops, it's really just, Tom York starts repeating, you know what I mean. And it's just like the drums come in and just everything kind of like clicks together, and kind of brings that like this sound that Radiohead's so good at, of having a very basic concept in the beginning and just kind of piling and piling and piling on, like, like There does it. And a shit ton of Radiohead songs do it, but I think it does it really well in this song. And it's just that song is without a doubt, I think Deck Stark is one of my favorites. Desert Island Disc has got to be my favorite song on that album. It's truly, it's so good, and once that song clicked, I've been playing that shit on repeat. But I'm gonna talk about a few other songs of this. I don't want to go through every single song, but um, Glass Eyes. What a fucking special song, man. What an amazing song that song is, dude. I can't, I'm repeating words. That's how captivating that song is. Just it's got a beautiful piano line. The lyrics really make you think, really feel vulnerable. Seen into the side of Tom York, and it's just it's great. It's I don't you know I don't want to keep just saying it's great, but this album, it's really a special album. You even have some bangers on the album, Identic, even though the whole album kind of follows that more mellow, softer, subdued kind of tone. Identic still kind of comes through as kind of an upbeat kind of, again, kind of Hail to the Thief reminiscent banger that Radiohead has. And, I think it's a really important point on the album to have a more upbeat kind of song like that. Otherwise, I think if you have those slower songs right butted up next to each other over and over and over, it kind of takes away from them after a bit. So having Identic where it is, I think not only is a great song, the placement on the album is very smartly done by Radiohead. Some other favorites on the album before I talk about the last one, The Numbers, great song. Present Tense, a banger song. I really think this album, I don't know what I wasn't seeing throughout the years. It's really a very consistent album, even on some of my favorite Radiohead projects, even on Kid A, there's some songs that I skip through, I never listened to all the way, even, on Amnesiac, one of my all-time favorite Radiohead albums, I skip some songs, I skip Polk, Revolving Doors every now and then, I'll skip, like Spinning Plates, but, A Moon-Shaped Pool, I don't know, man, every song is just kind of, it's got its own thing to love in it. There's a little something for everyone. If you're a Donkey fan, or an IGN fan, I guess. But yeah, I want to talk about the final song in the album because I love final songs on Radiohead albums. I think they always do something special. It's something that I've tried to use in my own projects, but like some of my favorite Radiohead songs of all time are the final songs in the album. Videotape from In Rainbows, one of my favorite Radiohead songs ever. Probably my all-time favorite Radiohead song is Motion Picture Soundtrack from Kid A. You even have Life in a Glass House from Amnesiac, which comes as such a cool, track on that album that just completely subverts all expectations. You get this really kind of cool jazz piece, So final songs on Radiohead projects always have a certain weight to them. And I think True Love Waits, as a final song of what is probably the final Radiohead album, is such an amazing note to end that album on. And I'm not going to speak to the personal lives of Tom York or any of the members of Radiohead, because I know there's various interpretations on what the song means. I don't want to speak to any of that, but I just think having a song, more so I'll speak to it as just a longtime Radiohead fan. For a song like True Love Waits, where we had the Live in Oslo version for years, that everybody kind of has this familiarity with, I think ending Radiohead's discography, if that is indeed what they're doing, with True Love Waits and a version of True Love Waits that sounds so different, and so A Moon-Shaped Pool-esque, that sounds unlike any other Radiohead album, but still has that sense of odd familiarity, is really such a beautiful way to end their discography. Just having a song that says goodbye, to something that is maybe still so familiar with us in our heads and our hearts, but has changed, it's evolved, it's grown, it's not exactly the same, and is leaving. I think it's just a great way to not only end the album, but just an end to Radiohead. Yeah. What a great album, man. If you're a fan of Radiohead and you haven't liked it like me, give it another listen. It really clicked with me. It's really a great song. If you're into obscure, alternative, experimental kind of music, give it a listen. I think you really like it. I think the best songs on the album, at least that you should check out, think Burn the Witch is a great opener. I think anybody can kind of get into that song. Desert Island Disc, one of my favorite songs. Deck Stark, because a lot of people like that. And then Daydreamin'. I think that could be a good, place to start with the album. Then if you like what you hear there, just listen to it through. So I'm gonna do this really fast because I just went through like another 20 minutes of recording, doing a whole tier list and explaining everything. So I'm just gonna do real fast while I got you here my Radiohead ratings bottom to top, because really I recorded for another 20 minutes just going into the deep end about this shit. So bottom to top. Okay, let's see. King of Limbs at the bottom. I don't think it's a bad album by any means. I think the live version, did a lot of favors. I think if you include songs like The Daily Mail in there, it does it even more favors. So not bad at all, but just not my favorite. Pablo Honey, I think it's a fine album. It obviously has a lot of hits on there that people know. Creep, mainly, anyone can play guitar, but again, not my favorite by far of Radiohead sound. Then probably Hail to the Thief. I love Hail to the Thief. 2 + 2 = 5. One of the greatest openers they've ever had in an album. And Wolf of the Door, great song, great closer. But again, I just think they've done so much better. It's a problem with a band like this that just has so many amazing songs. Let's see, next. I know it's probably going to piss people off. It's going to sound like blasphemy. OK Computer. Don't get me wrong. One of the greatest albums of all time. I'd rate it a 10. I think it's great. Just, again, Radiohead has so many songs that I absolutely adore. So many albums I adore. And OK Computer, it's great. It's not always my favorite. That's all. Next up, super high with this one, Amnesiac. I love Amnesiac. I love every single thing about that album. Packed, Pyramid Song, You and Whose Army, Life in a Glass House. Just an amazing lineup of songs. Even songs I don't like, like Spinning Plates. Still think it's a great song. Just not always. I skip it sometimes, but I love Amnesiac so much. I think it doesn't get enough praise for how great that album is, how, diverse it is. Next up has to be The Bends. Definitely. The Bends has inspired me in so many ways. I love so many songs from that album. Street Spirit, Nice Dream. It's an amazing album. And it's definitely one of the Radiohead albums that I go back to the most and just listen start to finish, so I think the sound they introduced on the Bends, they definitely fully realized in OK Computer. But there's a certain rawness to the Bends that I just really love and I really appreciate. We're getting down to the final two. So definitely, even though it's behind me, even though it's one of my favorites, even though it's inspired me in so many ways, we're getting down to the top two. Even though it's right behind me, even though it's inspired me so many ways, I gotta say Kid A is my second top Radiohead album. I'm going into the weeds on every album again, and I'm going to talk about Kid A for like 10 hours if I go into it again, so I'm just going to stop there with Kid A, and top one is In Rainbows. I definitely think In Rainbows is not only my favorite Radiohead album, but probably the best. I think if you're going to show anybody Kid A, or Jesus, I think if you're going to show anybody Radiohead, you definitely should go with In Rainbows. It just kind of has that mass appeal. A lot of people are going to know 15 Step because it was the credit song in Twilight. It's going to immediately hit them with that familiarity, make them want to stick around for the rest of the album. You get Body Snatchers, kind of that raw rock sound that, is reminiscent of Radiohead's earlier days. You get Nude, which I think is one of the most amazing songs Radiohead's ever made. And just, it's a great album, so there you got the whole list right there. I don't know where exactly I would put Moonshaped Pool yet. I just started really liking it. I just started, listening to it back to back. It's probably going to go on for the next month. So I don't want to say a placement right now and then look back tomorrow and already regret it. But I really do think that A Moonshaped Pool is a special album. I think as the end to Radiohead's discography, I think it's a great way to send off the band. I think it's a brand new sound that is both new and also feels like a fully realized vision of their entire collective sound. And I think it's great, man. You should listen to it. It's probably a 10 for me. I love Radiohead. I think they're one of the greatest bands. I've been ranting about Radiohead now for far too long. Listen to A Moon-Shaped Pool, listen to the band, and yeah, I really love this album. So that's it for me. Later.